A very good morning to you and welcome back to West Ham Unofficial. Happy Hump Day. Happy Wednesday, people. Oh, it's early. We're here to discuss last night's 0-0 draw at the London Stadium. West Ham 0, Brighton and Hove Albion 0. Two sides massively weakened due to injuries, suspensions and international commitments resulted in a dire stalemate at the London Stadium last night. It was West Ham's first goalless draw for over 750 days. Our last one came back in December 2021 against Burnley, and that was over 80 Premier League games ago. That is mental to think. The game provided a Carabao Cup feel, I felt, to be honest with you. Both sides were forced into naming a B or even a C team, which was hugely detrimental to the game's quality and was reflected in the end scoreline. Brighton's domination came to no avail, with no clinical edge in the final third, despite the Seagulls registering 8 shots on target. The common reoccurring theme was the ball nestled in the grateful arms of Alphonse Areola. I recall Pascal Gross having 1 or 2 noticeable chances. Evan Ferguson had a hit from outside the box, for which forced a smart save out of Alphonse Areola. But that was the closest the away side got to breaking a stalemate. Apart from the last 15 minutes at the end, I didn't feel like we were massively under the pump until that point, if I'm being honest with you. But ultimately, if you can't put the ball in the back of the net, then you don't deserve to win the football match. And Moyes will be more than happy with the point, which now means the Hammers have accumulated 10 points from 10 points from a possible 12 over the festive period, which in my estimation is an incredibly good return. Welcome back to West Ham Unofficial. That's the intro done. It's a bit shorter than the usual reflection intros because there wasn't a lot to discuss from that. Listen, I'm not going to keep you for a hell of a long time discussing this because I don't think the game warrants it. I didn't think the game was at all good. I mean, the game was going to go one or two ways, and we discussed this on the build-up show before the game. It was either going to be 2 really poor defences conceding and leaking goals, and it's going to be crazy, or it's going to be a really dull and dire 0-0. And of course, it was the latter. And look, it's a point that I'm going to respect, and it's a point that I'm going to take and move on and sort of forget about this game because it was very unforgettable with very minimal chances. You know, I couldn't believe when I was looking at the stats that Brighton had 8 shots on target. I can't recollect that. Like 3 or 4 I can vividly remember, but apart from that, I really don't think they tested Areola in our goal. And yes, they dominated the possession. And people are going to use that, other clubs and Brighton fans and whoever are going to use that as a stick to beat us with. But we concede possession happily. You know that's not one of our game plans, is to keep the ball. It's just not. It's to give the opposition the ball and to try and do them on the counter attack. And we didn't quite have that clinical edge that we had at the Emirates on Thursday night, because we had a couple of chances last night. We could have easily buried one away, which of course would have changed the dynamic of the game completely if it was in the first half, or even up until probably midway through the second half. It would have changed the dynamic of the game, and Brighton would have had to come out a bit more. And I think the floodgates may have opened. And Souček had a chance, a couple of unfortunate moments, which resulted in a couple of chances not going in the back of the net. Listen, Brighton had more chances. They had the better of the play, but they didn't put the ball in the back of the net. So ultimately, they didn't deserve to win the match. Yes, we'll feel a little bit fortunate that they didn't test Areola more than they did in the end, because they did get themselves into some really good positions. But Roberto De Zerbi's side are very much a passing side. It's pass, and it gets to the stage where it got quite boring. And yes, that's probably our tactics as well, because we sat on the edge of the box and tried to defend that point in the second half at home, which I know sounds really bad, but I'll come to why I thought it was quite reasonable in a second. And the sort of inconsistency with Brighton, either putting the ball in the box or not. They didn't seem to have a plan B to break us down. Now, I've said this all season. I've said it for a couple of seasons with Brighton. If you go to Brighton, like you do with pretty much most big sides, if you go and you have a go at them, the chances are you're going to get beat. Look at Spurs last Thursday. They went, yes, they're very depleted. Yes, they've got a lot of injuries. I know that. But they went and they played at Brighton, and it probably made a fantastic game. It was a brilliant spectacle. I don't know. I didn't watch it. But they were 4-0 down with 20 minutes to go or something. That's what happens if you go and you try and play against Brighton with inferior players, which Spurs did have due to their injuries. And last night, if we're being honest, we had inferior players. And Moyes was never going to go for it last night. That was just never on the cards. But I think we frustrated Brighton. We frustrated Roberto De Zerbi. He was pacing up and down, chucking himself back in the chair, putting his arms up. He was frustrated, De Zerbi, and Brighton couldn't break us down. And in the end, I don't think a point is a bad result at all. I'll take it 100%. 10 points from our last 12 over the festive period, unbeaten in our last 4 in the Premier League. I would 100% take that. Wins against a good Wolves side, Man United, Arsenal, very good Arsenal side, and a point against Brighton. It felt like a Carabao Cup game. It just felt a bit peculiar. Playing on a Tuesday when everyone else played normally on a Saturday or a Sunday or Monday Night Football for Liverpool Newcastle. It just felt a little bit like, not a friendly, but it just felt a bit strange with both teams' best players not involved. We have Bowen, but apart from that, our best players not involved. We had half of our first team out last night. They had pretty much the same, I think. So we were evenly matched in that sense, and I think they probably just about deserved to edge it at the end with the domination they had, because we did sit back and park the bus in the light, especially in the last 20 minutes, and we defended for our lives. It was one-way traffic, and how they didn't have some more clear-cut opportunities on goal with the positions they got themselves in, I will never know. So Brighton will feel the more frustrated of the two sides. I think West Ham will be grateful for the point. I think that's probably a fair reflection of it. And look, when you look at the bigger picture, in that sense, we're 6th in the league. We're 3 points off of the chasing pack of, coincidentally, Brighton that are 3 points behind us. Then you drop down to 4 points to the next team, and then you've got like Chelsea, who are 5 points below us or something like that. And then we look at the table. We're 5 points off Spurs. We had an opportunity to go within 3 of our North London neighbours last night, but we didn't do that. And listen, our target this season isn't to be rivaling Arsenal and Spurs. It was never that. It's never going to be that. But I think our target is to maintain this 6th spot, which we have done. And we now go into a break now. For some reason, we don't play. Obviously, next weekend is FA Cup, and for some reason, I've got no idea why we don't play the weekend after. There's a game week on the 14th. Is it the 13th and the 14th of January, and we don't play. So our next Premier League game comes in like 19 days against Sheffield United away on the 22nd of January, which probably does us some favours with the amount of players we have out missing at the moment. Obviously, Kudus hasn't gone to AFCON yet, but is going to AFCON as far as we are aware. So it's probably quite fortunate for West Ham that now we've only got 1 Premier League game left in the month, I think, just Sheffield United, and then we go into February with games against Bournemouth and Manchester United in there as well. So look, we've got the FA Cup game on Sunday against Bristol City. I'd expect a similar sort of lineup, because I don't think many more players are going to be available to Moyes. So that it's just scrape over the line. I don't think it's going to be at all a pretty game. I'm a little bit concerned because of the 9,000 fans that Bristol City are bringing with them, so they could be a force. That's another factor to sort of fit into this game. It will be a tough game. There won't be a pushover. They're quite a decent footballing outfit. And look, listen, if we aren't good enough to go through, then we aren't good enough to go through. If they turn up and they do a job on us, then it is what it is, unfortunately. But look, we're going to be missing players, and Moyes will probably rest a few, because we have played a lot of games in December and going into January. And I know we've got a bit of a break ahead of us as it is, but we don't want these players unnecessarily picking up injuries. And this B team should be enough to beat Bristol City, but will it? Who knows? Who knows? We've got a break now, which hopefully can give Moyes a chance to reassess and for us to go again. We're into 2024 now. We're over halfway through the season, and we're sat 6th, and we aren't sat there for no reason, because we've deserved to be sat there. We've out tactics some really big sides, and we've taken some huge scalps, which perhaps we weren't expected to this season. Last night ultimately did reinforce how out of depth our fringe players are, especially Fornals and Benrahma. I put a tweet out last night that went a little bit viral, saying that I couldn't understand why Benrahma got taken off over Fornals. Now, listen, I don't think Benrahma was fantastic, but why Fornals wasn't taken off over him? Because at least Benrahma was having a go. I can't even remember Fornals having more than 5 touches in that second half. He's just out of his depth. And, Moyes gives these players chances, and this is what he's got to say. And these players, they're all going to, I want game time. I want game time in the Premier League. When you put in performances like that, you're not giving Moyes any hope, are you? We've had Lincoln like this. We've had the Olympiacos game like this, the Liverpool game like this, and to an extent that last night, yes, we did well to get a point, but it still wasn't a great performance, was it? Because of the players we had out missing. these fringe players aren't doing themselves any favours. They really aren't, and it's all down to them. It's nothing to do with Moyes. These players aren't turning up and not performing. Then Moyes is left with no choice but to start our first team. They aren't breaking through. They aren't knocking on the door violently, demanding a start with valid, really good performances. They're just not. They're not good enough, and I think a lot of them will leave in January. Ben Johnson, I thought, had a solid game. I don't think he's done himself any harm in recent appearances, actually. I thought he was probably our best player up at Liverpool, and I thought he was quite good last night as well. And he sort of meandered his way through midfield with the ball a couple of times and pushed us up the pitch a bit with the pace that we're perhaps lacking with when we've got Vladimir Soufal there, I think. And listen, that's nothing against Soufal. I think he's a brilliant right back, and he is our first choice right back, but he is lacking in the pace department, which Ben Johnson isn't. So that was a bit of a nice refreshing change last night. Don't get me wrong, Soufal's the better right back, but I don't think Ben Johnson was at all poor last night. Crikey. I think it further showed how much we rely on the creative ability of Kudus and Paquetá. That was blatantly obvious because sorry. Bowen was looking left and looking right, and there wasn't any inspiration around him, was there? And he was struggling. I don't think Bowen had a good game. The ball wasn't sticking to him. He wasn't holding it up. He wasn't effective. And that was probably down to the players he had around him. The midfield wasn't as creative as perhaps we'd have wanted with Ward-Prowse in there and Souček laying the ball off, and Bowen and Benrahma and Fornals really weren't too good. So look, I don't take that Bowen performance with phase value and say he was really crap last night. Yes, he was, but look at the circumstances and players he had at his disposal, and he looked left and right. So I don't blame him too much for that. I don't think it's a bad result, all things considered. With the absentees and our decent results, I think we could probably afford to draw that game to Brighton. And yes, I can sort of see the frustrations of people saying, yeah, but Brighton had all these players missing as well. We should have went for it. We should have won the game, all this and all that. I'd have probably been in agreement with you if we hadn't have won our last 3 Premier League games. We've sort of been able to bridge a gap now where we could probably afford to draw that game. And listen, we went into the season dreading Brighton, absolutely dreading them. We went down to the Amex in August thinking we're going to, we are just going to lose. Like, that's it. We are going to lose, and we didn't. We've taken 4 points off Brighton this season. We haven't beaten them since, apart from August, we haven't beaten them since 2012. They are the definition of West Ham's bogey team before this season. So if you ask pretty much any West Ham fan, before the season starts, would you take 4 points against Brighton this season? They would have snatched your hand off for it. And if you'd have also asked them on the 3rd of January 2024, would you take being 6th in the Premier League? They'd snatch your hand off for it. So I think we've just got to look at the bigger picture here. Yes, in the short term, maybe we should have had a bit of a go last night, but that may have resulted in us, losing the point that we did earn in the end. Maybe we should have went on. Maybe we should have been a bit more clinical with the couple of chances we had. But in the bigger picture, it's not the end of the world. It's not a bad result. And we could afford to just take a point in this game because we've won our last 3 games. Yes, it was an opportunity to really form a gap last night between the chasing pack behind us, but we still kept the points tally moving, and now we can sit back and relax until the 22nd of January. Yeah, we might drop down to 7th or 8th, but then we play Sheffield United where we can bring ourselves back up into the equation again. So look, I'm not all doom and gloom. I didn't think it was too bad. Yeah, the game was pretty dire to watch, but I expected that with the 2 lineups that went out. A B and a C team played against each other. It felt like a Carabao Cup game. It felt like a friendly at some points. The crowd didn't get up for it. There just wasn't any sort of real drive about it, which I sort of expected to an extent. Taking Brighton, they were missing a lot of players, but fans are quick to forget our historic inability to beat Brighton in the end. And taking into consideration we haven't beaten them since 2012, apart from August, then I will take it. Overall, it's not a memorable game. It was frustrating to an extent. I understand that. But with the bigger picture in view, not a bad result at all. Thank you very much indeed for watching. Drop a like on the video and subscribe to West Ham. And official. Have a great Wednesday. To you, I need a drink. Oh, that's better. And I will see you for a Bristol City preview in the coming days. And of course, the transfer shows will return because the transfer window has opened. Yes. Thank you very much. I'll take a point in the end. Not a bad result. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.